Hi, and welcome to Coffee and Calacas. This is a special episode on a true crime. So, if you are sensitive to this kind of topic, where we will discuss murder and things of that kind, then I suggest you go ahead and skip this episode and wait for next week's episode. If you're okay, then go ahead and proceed. Thank you. Well, for this week, I had something completely in mind. Um, Completely different than what I'm going to talk about this week. This wasn't supposed to be a true crime week. I was actually saving that for next week, but I don't know. Felt inspired, and on the very last minute, I did go and change everything up. I know some people enjoy true crime, listening to it and, hearing about it. And you're probably wondering, Joe, what does this have to do with the supernatural? Well, it doesn't. It's just horrible. It's just what it is. True crime is horrible. And because it's horrible, it's somewhat horror, And this particular true crime episode hits, close to the Brownsville area, or is in the Brownsville area, which is why I picked it. Also, in light of recent events, with, not to make this political, but with what I've been hearing about Roe versus Wade and stuff, I just felt like it would be a good topic to kind of talk about. If you're not comfortable with true crime, then go ahead and, you can stop listening to this now before I actually get into anything. But if you do, listen on and share your thoughts. What do you think about what's going on? Now, Coffee and Calacas is a weekly podcast, and we do share stories of the supernatural, and we discuss mysticism, and we explore in the beyond. Now, this is probably what I would consider the beyond. Like I said, it's not the supernatural, it's not mysticism, it's nothing of that kind, it's not that nature, but it's horror, because it's horrible. The situation what occurred was a very horrible situation, and it's a situation that, it's the kind of thing that doesn't get talked about a lot, because it gets, brushed out of the way, because it's such a heavy topic to talk about. It's not easy for everyone to discuss this. Now, just because I discuss it doesn't mean that, I get a kick out of it. It's just something that, it's one of those stories that doesn't, get a lot of media attention, and you have to wonder, why doesn't this one get media attention, but other stories do? So, stick around and, for this week's episode, and, let's discuss the end, what we think, okay? Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. If you're listening to this on Sunday, hopefully this is out by Sunday. If not, then Monday, before Tuesday. Feliz Dia de las Madres, for everyone that celebrates it in Mexico. But happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Being a mom is a magnificent, feat all on its own. So what you do is amazing. This particular episode, it's going to be a bit of a darker tone. And if you've seen the title, by now you're probably wondering, geez, man, why are you going so dark? And it's just one of those where it's an interesting topic to discuss. It's not something that's always talked about, because it gets swept under the rug and, gets pushed aside. But it's something that, I feel that people might want to discuss somewhat. There's been a lot going on with mothers altogether. If you've been keeping up with the news, you've seen a mom who is on death row, and her execution sentence has had a stay, meaning that it's been halted in light of new evidence. So it might go to court again, might go to trial to discuss the new evidence, and That's all being investigated. And no, the story's not about her. It's about another mom altogether. But you see that and you think, okay, clearly that mom is on death row. Now you have other moms, like Andrea Yates, who did a horrible crime altogether. And she was aware of what she had done. And instead, she's just serving time in a mental health institution. Which you could say, oh, well, that's still pretty harsh. Yeah, it's harsh, but you have one mom who may or may have not, been part of her child's death and is on death row for that one child. You have another mom over here who had 5 kids and drowned them all, and nothing, right? So this particular true crime episode does take place in Brownsville, Texas. Okay. It is the story of Angela Camacho and her common law husband, John Allen Rubio. Now, I picked her because 1, it's in Brownsville, and 2, there's not a lot of information, about her. Like, she doesn't get talked about a lot. Honestly, she really doesn't get talked about at all. Which is good, in the sense that, what she did was a horrible crime, and she should pay for it. But at the same time, the victims of that crime are often just forgotten. Now, if you're aware of this particular, story, then hopefully you can give me some insight as to what you think. This happened back in 2003. March of 2003 to be exact. And I can't exactly say where I was at, in 2003. I mean, I know that during that time I must have been a freshman in high school. And I remember, seeing the news story. I was sitting down with my mom, and Channel 5, Channel 4, whatever we were watching at the time, came on, and they broke the news saying, this happened, this incident occurred with this woman, and, she killed her kids. And my first thought, now at that time, I was taking criminal justice classes in high school. My goal has always been to go into law, not as a police officer, but as a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I still have goals to become one day, but at this point I'm not a lawyer. But I remember hearing about that, and I know that in class we did talk about it somewhat, to an extent, not a lot, but we did talk about it a little bit. And I remember, just the overall nature of the crime, how horrible it was. That's the only word I can think of to describe it. How horrible, how gruesome, and how unnecessary. Okay. So this brings me to Andrea Yates again. Andrea Yates was a mom of 5 kids. And yeah, it was a horrible what she did, but it wasn't as gruesome as what this is. If you're not aware, Angela Camacho killed her kid. She had 3 kids. A 3-year-old girl, a 1-year-old boy, and a 2-month-old, little girl. And her common law husband helped her kill him. So when I researched, this happened at their apartment. Now, in that area of town from where they live, I'm familiar with it. It's not something that I hadn't crossed before. I had a relative that lived in that area, so yeah, I was aware of where this was at. And it was a very horrible place. Not a horrible place, because the thing is that it was towards the downtown area. And it was actually close to the Cameron County Courthouse, to be honest with you. So it wasn't super far. It wasn't, but the apartment they lived in was run down. clearly wasn't, being kept up with. And after what they did, I mean, it just went to shit. It really did. It, not worth maintaining at that point. Who would want to live there, right? So I recall, hearing the story, we were all like, the whole community was in shock by this. So according to what I read about her, because I do remember the story. I know what happens, but I wanted more details. So what happened was a relative came to the apartment to see them, and she found the two bodies of the 3-year-old girl and the 1-year-old, and the 2-month-old baby, stuffed in trash bags. And when she walked into the apartment, she sees the little boy, who was 1, just lying there on the bed. Okay. So according to Angela and her husband, they said they killed the kids because they're possessed by demonic spirits. Camacho at the time was 24 years old, and her husband, I think, was 23. And they were accused of strangling and decapitating their 2-year-old, their 2 daughters. And apparently, what happened was they went ahead, they killed the 2 little girls first. Those were the 2 that they killed. And afterwards, they cleaned everything up. And they had sex. And afterwards, they killed the little boy. And they just left his body in the bed. They're like, oh, why not? Now, Angela pleaded guilty to this crime, okay? And she is serving 3 concurrent life sentences. Now, if I remember correctly from school, because remember, I was in criminal justice courses, concurrent means that they're happening at the same time. So instead of serving one after each other, it's all at the same time. So, and you might think, oh, she's gonna be in there for life, but honestly, well, some people do end up dying in prison. If I'm not mistaken as well, a life sentence isn't actually like you're there until the day you die. I believe it's at the average age span, or the average life expectancy of an American. Okay, so I believe right now it's about like 80 or 90 years, and you're supposed to be there for that year, for that long. Which you think, oh well, she might die. Well, some people live to be 100, so she might not. Well, anyways, as I was speaking about her, her husband, he asked to get the death penalty. He pleaded guilty, clearly, and he asked for the death penalty. He thought, oh, it's gonna be an easy way out, and I'm gonna go ahead and just get off right away, and that'll be the end of it. Not knowing that that's not how it works. That you do have to wait a certain amount of time before you can actually be executed. Yeah, so you do have to wait a certain amount of time. I'm not sure exactly how long it does take, but I know you have a chance to make an appeal and appeal your sentence during that time. And I guess he had regrets after, actually being, like given the life sentence, or I mean, not this life sentence, the death penalty. And he said to himself, hey, I don't want this after all. So he went to his lawyer and has been appealing this in court for years. Now the thing with Angela, from what I've read, she had a low IQ, and she had schizophrenia. Now, again, I'm gonna, go back to Andrea Yates, because not that Andrea Yates had a low IQ. She was actually a nurse, I believe, at one point in time, and that's how she met her husband, going through school and things like that. But instead, with her, she had she had been trying to commit suicide for a while. So she went ahead and, I guess, attempted to hurt herself. And I think at one point attempted to hurt one of the kids too. And she was in a psychiatric ward at one point, and she's released. And the doctor at that time had told her, it's best that you don't, have any more kids. Because what she was diagnosed not with just depression or postpartum depression, but she was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Okay, which is a little different to postpartum depression. Well, you're sad, you have trouble like getting out of bed and doing things, and having that motivation to take care of your child. But with postpartum psychosis, it's a little deeper than that. You hear things, you envision things, you hallucinate, and it changes your personality altogether, in the sense that you're more aggressive, you're angry, and you're more likely to harm the child in that sense. So I bring her up because with Andrea Yates, she was given the the opportunity to serve her time in a mental health facility because she was found insane. Okay. Insanity is only found in courts, not actually in a DSM book. A DSM book is a book where you have all the mental health diagnoses. So with her, she was found in, clinically insane, legally insane, and she was given the chance to do her time in a mental health facility, where she has waived her right for probation, or for a review board to review her case, to review how she's doing, and she could possibly go home. According to what I've read, that she's doing really well, and she's actually like improved a lot, but that she waives that right because she sees herself not being able to fit into society, which is probably why she sticks around there, right? Now with Angela Camacho had a history of schizophrenia, hearing voices, being paranoid. It's not being crazy, That's one of the things that a lot of people, oh, she's schizophrenic, she's crazy. No, it's not being crazy. It's just that your mind works a little differently. It's overstimulated at points. So you hear things that are not necessarily there. You see things that are not there. Your mind is, on a different track. So basically, if your mind is on a rail, you're usually just on one rail, and you're okay. Your mind is going through this one path, and it's okay. But usually with schizophrenia, what happens is your mind's on like two different paths at the same time. So it's going, to the left, and it's going to the right, and sometimes it intersects, and you lose a little bit of sense of reality, and you come back, and it's different. It's wired a little differently, and medication helps minimize those symptoms. So you don't feel so erratic. You don't hear things. You don't see things. You don't hallucinate. You don't see things. So with Angela, that was the situation. She had this history of it, and she was what you would consider low IQ. I don't know her exact IQ though. That I couldn't find. I'm pretty sure it's out there in a court document somewhere, because it did present it in court. So it has to be out there. I just need to look for it. But yeah, she had a low IQ, and her husband also was deemed low IQ because he was a huffer. He would huff paint, and he would sniff it, and apparently all that paint inhalation that he did damaged his brain so much that he had a low IQ, and that's why he did what he did. However, I think on her husband's part, it wasn't that. I think that was just his way of trying to lessen the blow from what he did. And I think he might have been into some dark stuff, and he took advantage of the fact that Angela, who really was, not in a good place, it took advantage of her in helping her manipulate, what she was feeling and what she was doing. So it's possible that Angela might have also been suffering from postpartum psychosis. And that's why I brought up, Andrea Yates, because that's what she was diagnosed with. And it's possible that Angela had it too. She had just had a 2-month-old baby. And postpartum psychosis is not like, de un día a otro. No. This is like something that it's ongoing unless it's treated. And you need your psychiatric treatments in order to combat those symptoms. So it's very possible that she had that undiagnosed because she might not have been getting the proper help. And why? Because she is a poor brown woman who didn't have health insurance. And which is why often people in certain areas lack the mental health treatment that they need to be able to function fully and live a good quality of life. She was living now there was a history of drug abuse. I believe both of them were smoking marijuana, the devil's, grass, the devil's lettuce, whatever you want to call it. So it's possible that drug-induced, paranoia might have kicked in. And that's where this whole idea of, the kids were possessed came in, and they took them out. And sometimes, in that moment, in that passion, or not that it's passionate, but they're high and their adrenaline is high. So they just feel very lustful, and they both felt it, and that's why the sex came in. It's extremely possible that's how it came about. Now, I don't know exactly what they were thinking. I've never interviewed them. If I would have interviewed them, there's a lot that I would like to know. When did this come about? Was this something recent, just from like one day to another, where it was just drug induced? Or had this been a series of things that had come about for months, And like I said, she was, her youngest was 2 months old, and she had a 1-year-old, okay? So if you do the math correctly, her oldest was a 3-year-old, okay? And her oldest had a different dad altogether. The 1-year-old and the 2-month-old did belong to her husband, John Allen. Okay. So by looking at that, it's possible that from the age of 3, because you could say, well, why didn't at the age of 3 why didn't her 3-year-old get injured before, and why now? Well, because sometimes having the change in hormones in the body when you're pregnant affects overall your mental health stability. So she had a 1-year-old, and then right away, a couple of months after having her 1-year-old, she gets pregnant again, and now she's pregnant again, so her hormones go up and down and up again, and then they come back down. She had the baby, and then that's when it's possible she starts feeling depressed, and that's why they start smoking more, doing a little bit more drugs, because he wants her to feel, good again. And at the same time, the drugs are affecting her mind, and they're affecting how she's, processing things, and all of that plays a big role on, your mental health. And which is why I bring about, these 3 ladies. You got Melissa Lucio, who, brown woman, poor family, has a history of drug abuse. Her situation, we don't know what happened exactly, but one kid dies, and oh man, she gets, she's gonna get executed. White woman kills 5 kids, and yeah, there was talk about getting her the death sentence, but oh no, look, she has, psychosis. She has postpartum psychosis. Like, it's a real mental health deal. Let's put her in a mental health institution to get her the help that she needs. Okay. Then you have this other brown woman here who poor area, low IQ, history of, problems and things like that. And, oh, well, she's just guilty. Like, she killed her kids, and she admitted she was guilty. And, I mean, there is no way you can admit that you're not guilty of doing that. So she admitted it, and instead of trying to get her the mental health that she needs, it's like, oh, well, let's just give her a life, sentence. I do believe she has gotten some mental health treatment from what I did read. But it's not the same mental health treatment that Andrea Yates gets. Andrea Yates is in a mental health facility, and she is, has a group therapy, has all that, And Angela Camacho is sitting in a prison cell for the rest of her life, serving a life sentence, not just 1 but 3. Now, and I bring them up over the dad just because the dad's case, it's still being appealed, and he's not important here. What's important here is mom's health. Maybe mom wasn't ready to become mom one more time, and she felt pressure to have that baby. And I'm not saying abortion is a great option or anything like that, but some people, it might have been a better option for them than to bring a kid into the world just to end up killing it. And why give that child the ability, to come in here and feel life when you end up offing it, right? So my opinion on this is that had she had the better health services that she was receiving, she might have been in a better situation than what she was living in. She might have had better mental health, better physical health, and that's important, because that would have affected the kids in the long run. Even if she wouldn't have killed them, her overall stability would have affected the kids in the long run. A few years ago, I was in a room with someone, and she also had, she was very explosive, this individual, and she had her kid with her. And I was talking to her mom, and she was holding the little baby in front of her. I don't know, I don't remember what happened. I know the mom said something, and she got pissed off, and she grabbed the baby, and it looked like she was going to toss the baby across the room. And I just went and I grabbed the baby from her, and I'm like, whoa. And she looked at me kind of like, whoa. And I said, hey, you need to calm down. Like, I understand you're upset, and I understand you're feeling a lot of frustration, but you can't just go toss a baby around, okay? I said, that's not good. And, she gave me an insight as to how she had the baby, and, the mom told me, she's like, I told her, and it surprised me from the mom, because the mom, such a sweet lady, very sweet lady, very religious too. And she told me, in confidence, of course, that, like, she didn't do it in front of her daughter because she didn't want her daughter getting upset. So at that point, her daughter had walked out of the house, and she was telling me, she was crying. She was saying, I told her, because I think the baby must have been maybe about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years old. And she said, I told her when she came out pregnant, you can have an abortion. We'll find a way to pay for an abortion so you can have an abortion. And her look was like, what? No, I want to be a mom. And she was like, her mom told her, but are you sure? It's a lot of responsibility. And her mom said, I know how you are. You get frustrated. You like to sleep in. You like to do this. And the baby's not going to let you do that. And you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get mad at the kid. So I told the mom, look, if you ever feel the need that the baby's in danger, call the cops. Call a number. And, I said not to have her arrested or anything like that, but to get her the mental health she needs. And she was seeing a doctor for her mental health, thankfully, right? But there were still those levels of, aggression that would, like, spike up in her. And at that moment, that day that I witnessed it, she was so mad. And it was a pretty large room that we were in, and I was close to her because I was discussing something with her, and I'm glad I was, because I managed to reach for the baby before she like actually tossed it, because I honestly felt, and even her mom said it too, she's like, I am so glad that you grabbed the baby. She's like, I ya me imaginaba que iba, a volar el bebé por el cuarto. And I'm like, I felt it too, So some people, when having babies, it takes a toll on their mind, because babies are a constant, not a feeding bag, but they're constantly in need of things, whether it's affection, whether it's food, whether it's being changed or just being rocked to sleep. They're needing stuff, and some people can't handle that. And this is why I feel that the Angela Camacho, was not in the position to have a child, and she didn't get the mental health she needed, which is probably why she did what she did. Now, I'm not trying to say, she ease her with the situation she did. What she did was horrible. There is no justifying it. But I feel that because of where she's from, she didn't get, not that she didn't get a fair trial, but she didn't get the right treatment that she needed. And some people don't have that treatment. They don't get that care. And it's an awful thing. It's a really awful thing. Now, what are your thoughts on the Angela Camacho case? What are your thoughts on her, killing her kids? It's awful what happened to those babies. I know a few years ago, maybe about 7 years ago, the city actually knocked down the apartments that were there, because no one was living in them. People were just going in there and vandalizing them and stuff. They knocked them down, and they made a little community garden in honor of those 3 babies. I think it's called the Angel Garden, and it's a beautiful little place. Very quiet. There's a little community library in there, so you can like drop off a little book and stuff. A little free library, and it's a sweet little place in memory of those 3 angels. So what are your thoughts? Let me know. Comment down below, and send me a message if what you think about the Angela Camacho case. Thank you for tuning in to Coffee and Calacas, and for sticking around for this true crime episode. I know it's not an episode for everyone, so if you did stick it out, thank you. I appreciate your support. But honestly, go ahead and let me know what you think, whether it's a private message or a comment down below. I really would like to know what your thoughts are on all of this. If you have more information, go ahead and let me know too, because I could possibly do another follow-up on this, or a small short on this topic. Now, we do have social media accounts, and you can find links to all our social media accounts at galacaspod.com. We have links to our YouTube, to our Spotify, to our TikTok, to our Instagram, to our Patreon, and so much more. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly what more, but there's stuff on there. So follow us if you haven't already. If you're listening to this on YouTube, thank you. I appreciate it. If you're listening to this on Spotify, thank you again. Honestly, really appreciate it as well. So comment down below, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so when our latest episodes are coming out. And just be kind to others, and be kind to yourself. And remember that life begins after coffee.